obviously this is a very different setting from what you're used to, and I most likely will be doing this from time to time, bringing on some of my friends, and we'll talk about things that actually matter: the Christian faith, productivity, and all of that. So we have our moderator here today.
Hi everybody, my name is Uche, and today we're going to be talking about various things centered on purpose and self-discovery. Sit back and enjoy. Alright, so how did we meet?
Do you want me to say it or you want to say it?
I think we'll just give brief perspective.
Alright. It was last semester, the ending of the semester, if I'm not mistaken. Was it? Yeah, ending of the semester. So I was about to go home, right? I had my luggages already. I was waiting for the bus that would take us, right? And I was talking with a friend, and he walked up to me and said that you were a subscriber and everything. I was shocked at that moment because it had never happened before. Nobody had walked up to me to say that. Exactly. Then when we got back to school, like 3 weeks or a month after, I saw you around then. That's how I started talking.
Okay, so let me give my perspective. I was with my sister at the cafeteria, and I was like, I know this guy, I watched his video, should I talk to him? Should I let him know that I'm a subscriber? And she was like, do what you want, just do what you want. And I was like, okay, I think I'm going to communicate to you. So I just lost the courage, I just saw him with a friend, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And I met you talking to your friend. I was like, hi, my name is Uche, I'm a subscriber. And you were like, oh, so nice. I'm like, you actually were so nice. I was like, okay, yeah, I had nothing to fear about. So that's how it was. And then, yeah. Next question, how did you meet the Lord?
How did I meet the Lord?
Yes.
I have met the Lord like 900 times, like over and over again.
I think everybody relates to that at this point.
Only that I genuinely am not sure which one was registered in heaven. I don't know that. I genuinely don't have a date, and it would be so nice to say, oh, I've been a believer for this amount of years.
Yes.
But I really don't know, right? The thing was, I grew up in a Christian home, so I have always known the Lord, and I put that in air quotes because you have to know the Lord for yourself, right? So there was never, or at least I don't recall any specific time. I just know that there was a time where I did not backslide any longer, and it has been good from there. But if I was to force a date, I would say in 2020, that COVID period where all our home and everything, I started questioning, God, His existence, things like that, basically, right? And I think that was the period. If I was to force a date into it, yeah.
I think it's really similar to mine because mine also happened in 2020, genuinely knowing God for myself. Because of course, I was born into a Christian family, and I knew about God. I knew a lot of things, and to me, Christianity seemed like a bunch of do's and don'ts. And I remember asking myself at some point, why is everything a sin? Why is it that I can't do this, I can't do that? And then I remember even a point where this was 2019. I actually met God for myself in 2020, but 2019 that was, I think, the height of my uncertainty about God, because there was a time where I was just testing to know if He really existed. And I just go to my tap, and I turn on the tap, and I see the water rushing. I'm like, okay, God, if you exist, let this tap stop rushing without me touching the control. And I was just looking at it, and nothing was happening. So that was just building even more uncertainty. So I think it just made me agnostic for a short period.
Because it tapped me up.
Because I was just angry. But now, in hindsight, I can say that I'm happy God did not answer me that way, because I would have had the wrong perception of who He is and how He works and how He communicates with us. So in 2020, this was during the lockdown. This was where I blew up into my youth pastor at the time's DM, and I told him a lot of things about how I didn't understand why Jesus died. I didn't understand so many things, why is this? And then he told me a lot of things about God. He said that God speaks in different ways. You can't box God. You can't limit how God works and speaks. And I decided to calm down and see for myself if there's a method to know the Lord, and the word is there, and I might as well do it. I might sit down, just get to know Him for myself through the word, because he told me that there was a point in his life where he wanted to hear God's voice, the literal voice of God, and he sat down in one room for 4 hours and did not hear anything. I was like, wow, so I'm not the only one in this world. So I remember now, there's a verse, Jeremiah 29 verse 13, it says, if you seek me and you seek me with all your heart, you will find me. And that was exactly what I did. I began to take my Bible study even more seriously, and that was how I can even say that literal skills fell off my eyes
Yeah.
because everything began to make sense. It began to crystallize, and I was able to understand why Jesus died, the points, what it meant for us
Yeah.
as believers here on earth and in eternity,
Yeah.
and how we live in a broken world and we need a savior because God is holy and He wouldn't bend His standards for anybody. I understood that it made perfect sense, and it just really touched me even most when I understood that He's in it for a relationship with us. So I think that's how it happened, and from then on, I can say now it's been 3 years and it has been amazing.
Yeah.
My life has been transformed.
I think that's extremely important, especially the bit that you said you can't box God.
Yes.
Right? And I think a lot of people need to understand that, because one of the questions that I got recently from someone was, how do you differentiate between God's voice and the Holy Spirit's voice? Right? And, the answer I can give is you're looking to hear a particular thing. So, whatever that might be, in your case, it was the tap turning off, right? Some people, it might be the audible voice.
Yes.
But I've come to realize in my short walk with God that you don't, tell Him how He should speak to you, right? He speaks to you however He knows, will be best. So if I hear an audible voice, it's possible that I would like, no, that's not God. Do you get what I'm saying? Right? So He knows what works for you.
Yes.
So He can speak through an audible voice. He can speak through your witness in the Spirit. Through a TV show, I can be talking to you and He just says something that, is the answer to all of my questions. So He can speak, however He likes. I think you just need to be open because He's always speaking. Right? And the thing that you said about Bible study, many people want to hear the voice of God without first going like, that's not happening. I'm sorry, it's not happening. And what do you want to hear?
Exactly.
You're not hearing anything different. So that's the primary way you hear His voice.
Yes, absolutely. I even remember there was a time where I was like worried. I was just so worried about something. I don't remember what exactly it was, but I was worried about like anticipation anxiety. That was what I was feeling. And I remember my brother just walked into the kitchen. He was like, Uche, why are you worried? And I just felt immediate peace after hearing that. I just knew that God spoke to my brother to let me know that I should just calm down. And I will never forget times like that. So I just learned that there's so many ways that God can speak to us. You just need to be sensitive to listen. So on to the next question. What's the most prominent motivation factor for growth? I mean, what is the most prominent factor that motivates you to grow, like in all areas of your life?
I think it's primarily purpose, like understanding purpose, right? I genuinely know that I have been called to be a voice that helps people, and not just spiritually, right? Financially, academically, and I've seen like traits of that in my life currently. So in my head, it doesn't make sense to stay in the same particular place, and I genuinely don't just like stagnancy. Like even before I discovered purpose and everything, I've never liked to be stagnant. I've always liked to be ahead. I've always been addicted to competition, whatever you want to call it here. Like I don't care. Like I've always been addicted to growth and all of that. Like I just want to know stuff. I just want to be able to have detailed, like standard conversations, intellectual conversations that is adding value. Like, remember that thing that we discussed about how I've never done a get to know me on the channel because I'm addicted to giving people value. Right? And the only way you can do that is by knowing more stuff than the regular person does. So that's like the generic motivation for growth in all areas.
It's like you read my mind because those were the two reasons I wanted to say just now. Number one, the fact that there's a purpose that everybody's called into, and when I became purpose conscious, I now suddenly had an aversion towards complacency and stagnancy. Just the idea that people are moving, the fact that you're supposed to be somewhere at a particular time, was just keeping me on my feet. Like, what is it that I need to be doing right now that I'm not doing? Is it spiritually? How can I grow? Is it financially? How can I grow? Intellectually? How can I grow? Emotionally, very importantly. How can I grow? How can I get better at my relationships? What is it that I'm not doing yet? So, and there's this constant hunger inside of me to just know more. Like I think it's just complacency, what I just hate so much. I can't just be living on past successes and just be boasting that I've done this, so I should fold my arms and that should be the end of the story. There's actually so much more that I can do. So I think that is what's it's exactly what you said.
Yeah, I think that's extremely profound. So how would you now picture this? There is this, and it's quite common actually. I figure that it's actually quite common amongst people our age. You wake up, you sleep, you eat, you watch TV, you go to bed, and you repeat that cycle. Like, well, what would you have to say about a life like that?
Well, I'd say that the person is wasting a lot of time because Everything has times and seasons. And even though they may not be aware, because a lot of people in those kinds of situations, they don't know that anything is wrong.
Yeah.
They don't know anything that anything is wrong. So I would say that person is wasting time, and the person should just get out, get out. That kind of person, if I see them one on one, I just like talk to them and make them understand that there are lives attached to you.
Yeah.
And everybody was created by God for a specific purpose.
Mhm.
Even if you may say that one person sings, but this person sings, I can sing. What's so special about me? Or this person speaks or writes, and that kind of thing. But I believe that there's a bunch of talents, even undiscovered ones, that one person may have, person A may have, person B may not have. So that special combination, that uniqueness, is what every individual carries. So when you harness all these potentials and you put it out there, then we now see the beautiful picture that God has been putting. That was the design that God had for me. So I just tell the person that, see, there's it's not better late than never, really. Even if you wasted so much time and you didn't know, this is to the person that didn't know, you didn't know that you had to get on your feet, then just know that there's time. It's not too late. You can always start all over again, but you have to work like twice as hard. Be at your best. But the person who knows that they're wasting time, like, you're on your own.
You're your own. So I think the summary is basically purpose driven, like a purpose driven life. I think that's.
I read the book.
Of course. That's why I said it.
It's in my list, but like.
Okay. Yeah, it's
one
a good
day
book.
is.
Yeah.
How significant is living a life of purpose to you? / what's your life philosophy? I think the latter question is better. What's your life philosophy? Are there any principles you live by?
You go first.
Okay, so I have a bunch of things that I realized. Even all of these things that I realized them within the space of, let's say, 5 months. Because who I am today, I was not, like this time last year, I was not this person.
Yeah.
I was a completely different person. And I think before I get into my life philosophy and what I've now learned, I would just say this. Many people are out there that do not know that where they are is a danger zone. A danger zone.
Yeah.
Because I would describe that a comfort zone is a danger zone. Because if you're not out there, how are you getting any experience? If you don't get any experience, how are you going to grow? If you don't grow, how are you going to add value to anybody? So, and if you don't add value to anybody, and this just, the chain reaction just keeps repeating itself, how will you get to the destiny that you're supposed to get to? So that's what I would say. I would say that it's actually very possible that many people are in this position, this comfort zone position. So it's really dangerous. I think it's a tactic of the enemy to make you believe or deceive you into thinking that where you are, being relaxed and being comfortable and not stressed it's normal. And that's where you're supposed to be. That's what your life is supposed to look like. But no. I think Dr. Miles Monroe, he said something. I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember the exact quotes. And he said, "The greatest enemy to progress is comfort." And that's exactly what I'm saying in summary. But getting to my life principles, I would say, number one, I believe that I'm limitless. I don't mean I'm independent, I have some power, and like I can do it without God. What I mean by limitless is like the fact that I'm His child, and I have the Holy Spirit inside of me, and He has a purpose for me. Combining all of these things together, I believe that there's literally nothing I cannot do. If there's anything that He calls me to do, I can do it. So let me just give this example. When I came to Bowen, I saw a lot of people stretching themselves in so many capacities, and it blew my mind. So if anyone had told me that you can be this, you can be that, you can be this, you can be that, I was like, nah, that's not possible. It's not possible that you have to focus on academics. In that time, I used to believe that all that there was to my life was academics. So that was what kept me in that box, thinking that it's just one thing. So when I came to school, I was able to see that there's so much that you can do, even still keeping God first. And you can serve in so many capacities. You can be responsible for so many things and still excel at your priorities. So that's the first thing, that I'm limitless. Then another principle I live by is not giving into fear. Fear is one of the most perilous things in this world, because it has this paralyzing effect. Because most people are not afraid to take that leap of faith. They're afraid to take that jump and see what's on the other side of their fear. They just don't do it. They just sit on the sidelines. And I think it just breeds regret in the long run. Because in that point where you don't do anything, you don't cross the other side of the fear, you just keep wondering what would have happened.
Yeah.
And I think regret is just terrible because you can't turn back the hands of the time.
Of course.
Definitely not. So I think I would just tell anyone out there to just take that leap of faith and do it. Just see it. Really, courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the attitude you have facing that fear regardless of the outcome. Just facing it and just handling it not negatively. Like, let's just say that that's what I believe courage is. So if you are going to do anything, just don't let the reason you're not doing something not be fear. Okay, let me rephrase that. The reason why you shouldn't be doing something should not be fear.
It
shouldn't be fear. So let it be like it's not your opportunity, or it's a boat for another person, or the Lord says no. That's the only time where you shouldn't like do it. But it should never be fear. Like, I have a story to tell. I remember my auntie, she texted me and she told me about the seminar. The financial literacy seminar. So my auntie, she texted me and then she told me that there was this like upcoming seminar where like I and alongside 24 other people we received training from like experts in the field of finance. They impart in us the fundamentals of money, saving, budgeting, things like that, and just generally learn about money. And you're going to receive this and teach whatever you're receiving to your community. And I was like, okay, I'm down for financial literacy, I'm down for learning new things and growing. But how am I going to get 25 people? So I told her I'm not interested, forget about it, it's not happening. And she was like, no, don't do that, don't be pessimistic. You can do this, there's so much opportunity at the other side of this, and I would really encourage you to get into it. And I was like, no. And then I just really thought about it and I was like, you know what? The reason why I'm saying no is fear. It's fear. I've never done anything like this. I'm not that kind of person that just goes out like, okay, I have this, come and patronize me, that I have marketing. I'm still growing in the idea of meeting people and asking them, just letting them about the upcoming program that I was responsible for. It was daunting and I was very, very, very apprehensive about the whole thing. So I told her no, and then she was like, just do it. Don't do it for me, do it for yourself. Just think about it. If it's fine if you don't do it. I just really got thinking. And I remember encouraging some people with this newfound principle about facing their fears, and there's so much at the other side of your fear and things like that. You know what? If I'm going to be a person of my word, I'm going to be a person of my word. I'm just going to do it. And there's actually a stipend attached to it. Like, I'm going to get paid for doing it. But I wasn't even thinking about the money. I was just like, you know what? I'm going to face this. I'm going to surmount it, and I'm going to get it and make myself proud. So I did it, and it was. I felt so happy, fulfilled, and relieved because I was able to learn so much, meet people. I was able to discover some things about myself I didn't know existed, and this is one of the core things I'm for. When you give a try to something that you've never done before, there's so much treasure that might actually lie in that whole situation. So I'm down for doing things like that to just see how much more there is to you that can be harnessed and add value to the community or environment around you.
I think that's profound.
And then the last thing, I know I've been talking for a while. The last thing is not giving excuses, because we lie to ourselves a lot. It's a fact. And the way to overcome not giving yourself excuses is being sincere with yourself, because many times there are things that we could, like opportunities we can grasp, there are places we can go, there are things that we can even take up responsibility for, but we just give excuses for why we can't do it. And I remember there was this lady. I remember, okay, let me just give this some backstory. I had the idea of collecting the keyboard, of playing the keyboard and like posting online. I don't post anything. Anybody that knows me, follows me, I don't post anything on my Instagram. So I had
status.
Status, nothing. I'm a very private person. Like, what's your business? And actually, it was rooted in. Okay, remind me where I'm going to. Excuses. I'm going to excuses, so I don't go off on it. So I don't post anything, and I remember just thinking, I can play something and I can actually minister to some people, because if I'm going into music, I know that I do Christian music.
Yeah.
And like I see it like a ministration kind of
Yeah.
thing. Christian music is like ministration. I see it as ministration.
Yeah.
So I saw this girl on YouTube. Her name is Victory, and she sings and she plays. And as I was watching her video, I was just really, really, really touched by it. And I was like, hold on, I can do what she's doing.
Yeah.
And I can do it. And then I now began to think about reasons why I couldn't. You know, that's the thing I do with myself, and it's not fair. It stems from comparison. I'm just so good at giving myself excuses that I'm able to, I'm able to spot out why I can't do what one person is doing.
Yeah.
You know, so I use those inadequacies as an excuse.
Mhm.
So I now sized it down. I'm like, no, I can't even do it.
Yeah.
It's too simple. It's too
Yeah.
basic. So I won't do it. I just
Yeah.
use that as an excuse. But then I thought back to how I was touched, and I said, you know, if the people that are watching her and are subscribed to her
Yeah.
being blessed, and they keep coming back, they keep
Mhm.
doing their referrals, and she's booming, and God is using her. I mean, what stops me from doing this? I'm not saying it was spirit-led, but you know, it was just the thought that I
Yeah.
had. So I now really
Do you sing, by the way, like sing and play?
I can't do that yet.
Okay.
I can, but like simple progressions,
Yeah,
but I
okay.
can't like go complex and
Okay.
sing at the same time. It's brain work, but I'm getting
Okay.
there.
Okay.
So, you know, even in my simplicity and what I can do, I should be able to bless people. Like if what the Lord wills for me. So I now started thinking about that. And this whole pointing out at inadequacies and using them as excuses, it stems from comparison.
Mhm.
So let me explain what comparison does. Comparison, it takes your shift,
Yeah.
as a believer most especially, it takes your shift off of God to other people.
Yeah.
And from there, from other people, it goes to what they have that you do not have.
Yeah.
And when that happens, your focus is shifted to your inadequacies.
Mhm.
And when you're focusing on your inadequacies, you begin to get ungrateful. You're shifted to ingratitude.
Yeah.
And then you begin to size down and devalue what you've already achieved and
Yeah,
accomplished.
yeah.
You now size down your own accomplishments and your growth
Mhm.
because you're not seeing it. You're not seeing what someone else is doing in yourself.
Yeah.
And it's wrong. And I was like, no, I'm being too hard on myself. I should learn to appreciate where I am, how far I've come, thank
Mhm.
God, and express it and use it
Yeah.
to bless people in however way possible.
Yeah.
So in any way anybody can be blessed from what I can do, let me just do it.
Yeah.
Instead of just magnifying my flaws.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah.
Literally just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Nike stuff.
Don't give yourself any excuses. If your reason is fear, or if your reason is your inadequacies, take your mind off of comparison. Comparison will just slow you down. It will distract you.
Yeah.
So in that race, it's just a matter of you and God. If you're looking
Yeah.
at another person, you're just going to get distracted. You're going to, if you keep doing that, you're just going to give up.
Mm.
If that is a constant reality, comparison,
Mhm.
you're going to give up. So I think those are my top 3 life principles.
Okay, yeah, I think that's good. Especially the bit that you said last. I remember I was having a conversation with some of my friends, right? And one of the questions that came up was how do we deal with what's that word? Imposter syndrome.
Yes,
right?
I thought about that.
And you know, the achievements bit is what you know is one of the ways that one of them mentioned, one of my friends mentioned, and I'm very bad at, you know, because I said earlier that I'm addicted to growth and everything. So I'm always looking forward, that I never have time to reminisce on what has happened before.
Yeah.
Like I don't believe a person should, you know, sit in past glory, right?
Yeah.
But you know, having that thought at the back of your mind, like, okay, I did this at some point, you know, helps to, you know, remove that imposter syndrome, that kind of thing. It's only, I remember one day, you know, I don't know why my friend did it, but she texted me and she just like told me that she's proud of me and told me like all the things that I had done in the past year. Like, Jesus, I've done these things.
Yes.
Like, I have never ever sat down to think about these things before, right? And you know, just remembering that, like you said, growth, like thinking back to where you were, you know, and that's why journal keeping. I know you do keep journals
Yes,
a lot,
I
right?
do.
I know that like that is extremely important to remind you of where you were. Like
Yeah.
at some point, these were the things that were bothering me, but now they no longer bother me. That kind of thing. So just having an understanding that you know you are growing.
Yes.
I think that should be satisfaction. You know, at least just a bit. Yeah. Can you remind me the question again?
Yes, it's just like your life principles or your life philosophy. What are the standards that you live by?
Okay. The major standard I live by is value proposition, right? Like there is nothing in this life that I do that does not have anything to do with, you know, impacting some level, some form of value, right? Even though it is just, a bit. Uche and I were talking about. I think I did mention this earlier, like the get to know me type video, or doing like a day in the life video, right? Even when I do those, I would still like take out time out of the video to tell you something that can, benefit your life, right?
Way,
exactly, in some way. That kind of thing. Like I just like to give value. I genuinely just like to help people. It's one of the reasons why I started the math tutorial for uni students, right? That's 100 level students, right? I was explaining stuff to them that I was learning, and I had to learn them first before I would explain, right? But I just want to give value, and that's one of the standards I live by. And fortunately and unfortunately, all my friends, at least all the closest people to me, have to be like that.
Yes.
I remember when I was getting so close to, one of my female friends, right? And we're getting so close, and I just had to ask, even though it was not the nicest, but what value do you offer?
I've done that to someone before. No, just carry on.
That was not the nicest thing. I probably could have asked in some way or manner, but I tend to be direct most of the time, right? But the point is, you are getting so close to me, right? So there needs to be a reason for that other than vibes. The vibe has to be there, definitely, right? But my major principle and everything falls under this, right? Just giving people value, even though that has to mean that you sacrifice certain things on your end, whether that be spiritual value. It's why I'm always like, if there's a call to teach the gospel, I'm very open to doing that, right? Because I know that I'm helping, like that's the highest value anybody can give, like the gospel, right? Then academics and anything I'm good at, basically. And that's the reason for this YouTube channel, genuinely, right? And that's the reason I'm doing this now, right? Because I know that we've had a conversation like this before. I just wanted, a lot of people to try and learn a thing about it. So all of my principles fall on that value proposition.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And it's also important that the circle that we keep is growing us. Because a lot of times you are the direct reflection of the environment that you're in, the people, the company you keep. And it's so important that you are able to discern those who are adding value to you. And at the same time, you must be able to give that value back, like you rightly said. So it's something that I became conscious of. So I try to cut off anything that isn't adding value to me. Because you can't be in my DM just saying, hi, how are you? Having eaten? That was one I even recently archived. Like, no, you cannot be doing this. We are wasting my time. If you have need to say, I can't be answering, okay, everything, I'm a land, something. No, you have
I get that.
And sometimes, and that particular person, there were times where I just bring up something, like I would give a wholesome 3-sentence reply, ask me questions, be like, okay, cool. And that was what he replied, like, and I'm like, I just archived him.
I get that. It's one of the reasons why I don't, like, people that have my WhatsApp contact, I don't reply very quickly, and it's because, respectfully speaking, you're not saying things that are weighty. I know you want to keep in touch with the high haze and all of that, but in all of that, there should be just a bit of value. And I would also like to add that, I used to think of value in a very direct way, such that, if you are not doing what I'm doing for you, right? So now, not exactly, I'm talking about in terms of value, right? Then you're not adding any value. But I realize, later on, the value can be very subtle. It can be, someone giving you, advice, someone being there to listen, things like that. Like it could be so subtle, it doesn't always have to be as direct, so prominent and all of that. And that helped me with, some of my friends, and not being so judgmental about what they're offering, because they do offer a lot, just not in the direct, or not just always in the direct, in the very obvious ways.
It's actually very important that we keep that at the back of our minds with whomever we're interacting with. I think something related to imposter syndrome is self-doubt. It's really killing. Like, you not even believe me, like last night I was asking myself, why did you ask me to do this? Because I was trying, sometimes I can be so hard on myself in my thought life, like, what exactly, like, of all the people you could ask, why did you ask me? Like, what is that I'm doing? I can't pinpoint what exactly I'm offering to you. But, it still roots back to what I said. I'm telling you. I was
you offer so much value that it should not be possible that you think that.
No, I was literally having, like, a mini anxiety something last night, because I was just like, no, what am I doing? How did I get here? Like, I was trying to think back, like, it's just a conversation we had one day, and, like, But I just really had to reflect on that last thing. Just really sit down, be honest with yourself, appreciate where you are, appreciate the processes, the people that got you to where you are. Don't size it down. So many people even wish to be where you are right now, but maybe they don't have the means, or they never had the company, no one pointed them in the right direction, things like that. So it's so important. And it's good to do a friendship appreciation post once in a while. Just enter that person's DM, maybe like your friend or your classmate, and just tell them how much you appreciate them and what exactly they have done. So sometimes if you do something for me, and you might not see like anything, but there can be a time where like I sit down and like I really did something for me. I'm going to detail it out and point it to you. So you may not really identify it as anything. But once it's brought to your consciousness, you can be like, what can I do to work on this thing? Like I can multiply this effect on the people that I surround myself with. It's just really something that's really, really, really needed. All right, so next question. Biggest fear.
Biggest fear?
Yes. Any biggest fear?
I think my biggest fear would be not living a purposeful life. Like at
you can't be doing this to me. You can't be reading my mind. It's not fair. It's like that's what I wanted to say. What kind of
like at the end of the day, not because I'm grateful to God that lately He's been giving me more insight into purpose. Right, I'm no longer oblivious, and all of that. And just to digress a bit, I was talking to a mentor in school, not mentor, like an elderly person, Sir David, right? And he asked, what are you going to do? Like, what would God have you do, right? And I was very sketchy about it. Like, I just had like a very rough sketch. I didn't have anything direct and things like that. And he said, did you ask God, further than what He revealed to you? Then I said, no. Then he said, that's why, right? And when I started asking, genuinely, I started getting. Right, I started receiving, I started hearing, even having scriptural backing, even having Bible characters that are doing exactly that kind of thing, right? And I think many a times most people don't know what their purpose is because you've not genuinely not asked. You've asked people, how do I find out my purpose? But you've never sat down to ask God and genuinely want to hear what He has to say. And what we spoke about before, it may not be an audible voice, it may be through a TV show, maybe through your friend, maybe through the most unconventional means, right? Just be very liberal with God because He's not rigid in the slightest, right? So, back to what we're saying. Because I've seen, and He hasn't even revealed the total picture. Sometimes, like, glimpses come and everything, and I'm overwhelmed. But if I don't achieve that at the end of the day, I would be gutted. That's my biggest fear. Like, every time it seems like I'm swaying away, or anytime it seems like I'm not doing it as I'm meant to be doing, right? I just can't. The summary of everything is like I can't not fulfill purpose. I can't not do it. Like I want Jesus to come, and He's smiling, right? Not just I'm going to heaven. Like that's stamped, sealed, and sorted out, right? But then, will He smile? Will He be happy? Will He, things like that. Like that's what I want. At the end of the day, that's like my biggest fear.
That's actually amazing. It's exactly what I want to say, but I'll just repackage some things here and here. You said something about Jesus saying something to you. I actually had that reflection a while back. It's good and fine. Amazing. In fact, not even good and fine. It's amazing that I've been welcomed into a family and I have inheritance in heaven and all of that. I've been saved. Beautiful. But there's also, I read, I listened to a message. He said, his name is Elijah Lam. He's a preacher, and he said something. He said everyone and everything exists, whether you're good or you're bad, for the general glory of God. But we surrender ourselves to God as believers for the specific glory of God. So that specific glory of God is what I'm after. You understand? So I want to just be more than the general.
Because the trees are doing that, the oceans are doing that.
Thank you so much. I can just look at everything and see the intricacy of God's design everywhere, and I'm just like, wow. But that very specific thing that no one else carries, I want to bring it forth to this earth and do that. That's one of the biggest things for me. It also reminds me of the parable of the talents. The master giving one person 5, 2, and then 1, and the person that had 1 didn't do anything about it. He says give some lousy excuse for not doing anything. And I was just really thinking about that it's so important that we have our minds focused on what exactly God wants us to do, because number one, I'm sure we don't want to be replaced. Don't want to be replaced, and there's just this fulfillment that comes with hearing Jesus say, "Well done, my good and faithful servant."
Yeah.
It's not just welcome, my child. Like, you did your assignment.
Yeah.
You carried
Genuinely,
it
that's
out.
just it. That is beautiful.
It's actually what I'm really after. It's the best thing you can do for yourself. Pastor Emmanuel Aaron, he said something.
My God.
Yeah, he said something. He said that's the core and the essence of your being.
Yeah.
Purpose.
Yeah.
It's not an assignment. It's not merely an assignment.
Yeah.
It is your purpose,
Like,
and
it's what you are there for. It's like going to school and not getting a degree. So what's like? It's what you're, and it's even bigger than that, because some people would then say like you're not in school for your degree.
Not just
but
that, yes.
That's what you are here for. There's nothing more. Every other thing has to be under that. Your marriage, your friendships, it has to be structured under that, and that's what has given me focus. In like, there are some positions that if they come my way, I just will not take. Remember, I was telling a friend that a friend. Then I mentioned it in my previous video. It's not out as we're doing this, but it's being recorded. You know. I went for assistant academic director,
Yes,
right? And I lost the election. But then there was another post, 200 level commissioner, that I could have gone for. That post was free, right? So if I went for it, I would have been I would have whether they voted or not, I would have already been that, right? So a friend asked me like, why didn't you just do that instead, right? Because you know that there's no competition, and you would eventually, be part of the executives and everything.
Yeah.
And it's purpose that guides me in that has nothing to do with what God has sent me to do, right? The academic director had a lot to do with what, and I'm not going to get into the bits and details as to, okay, you lost, but then doesn't it now mean God did not tell you? No, that's not what it means, right? But the point basically is that it was direct, it was an instruction, like, this is what it is. It's the academic sector, nothing less than that and nothing more than that, right? So it just gives you focus, and you're not looking for certain things, like it's a group of people come your way, and if these people align with your purpose, you're listening, like what we discussed about earlier, to a preacher. Is this preacher we're not even talking about sound doctrine now. We're saying, is he mentioning things, or is he the representation of what God has pictured, giving you the picture of who you become and things like that? Like, focus in every area, and I think that just helps with so many things.
Exactly. I can't agree more, honestly. Just hit the nail on the head. Alright, so next question. Do you have any, what would you say is your biggest regret?
I actually, like, and it's not cliche, I actually don't have any regrets, like, ever. And it's at some point in my life, I started understanding why it doesn't make any sense to have regrets. Because even for the biggest mistakes I have made, I wouldn't call them mistakes. I've been genuine about going in the opposite direction, right? In terms of sin, backsliding, right? Things like that, But even those things, I don't regret it, because I remember I've, witnessed to some people, preached to some people, and that's, in fact, during one Sunday school, this is a more evident example. During because I teach Sunday school, right? So I was taking a Sunday school class, and it was just laid in my heart. It was not even in the outline, right? But it was just laid in my heart to talk about how I struggled with addiction for a long period of time, right? And after I said all of that, someone texted me and said that she's struggling, she's going through the same things, but she's not known how to, talk to people and things like that. Can I help her out? And till today, we've been, we're still going on with the discipleship, discipler, that kind of thing, right? And it's what, like, I just can't regret that. I can't regret, even though those years were, very dark, right? But I can't regret that, because someone was brought into the light because of my darkness, right? So, even if I found Christ, or even if Christ found me yesterday, right, I still would not regret that I've been away, because all of that would be used for something. How did Paul write? It said, for all things work together for good of those that love him and are called according to his purpose. So if you're in purpose, whatever you've done that is not good would eventually, I don't know how, but it would always, find a way to speak good about the God that you serve and everything. So it's one of the reasons I really don't like have any regret.
Yes, it's actually it's really good because a lot of believers are out there and they're just hating on themselves, just going through a lot of things.
Even for those that have come into the light, hating on the things they used to
It
do.
still like taunts them because of how dark it was. And I think I just say to anyone that's out there, just know that God is using your story for somebody. There's someone that's even going through something very similar, even exactly what you're going through, and just don't hate it. For every story, he has a purpose behind it, and he's going to use you. Just see yourself as an instrument. A lot of times, it's just he just allows us to go through something for the sake of others. It's the thought that you know that your life has other lives attached to it. That just keeps you going. And you know what? I'm not going to hate on myself for this. I'm not going to resent this part of my life. God is using it for someone. You understand? And there are also people that are out there because they have gone through that, and they it has faded. It's not part of their like past. They now begin to look at someone. It's hypocritical. They look at someone going through that same thing. They may not realize it immediately, but look at someone going through that same thing, and they begin to judge them. But that's not the way to go about it, because it's someone that represents a reflection of who you once were. So that's even the more reason why you shouldn't ever judge anybody. Don't ever do that, because it's someone that you once were. And see it as grace and privilege that you have been brought out of that. That's exactly who you used to be once upon a time. So if you can get there, there's every possibility that person can also get there. It's also very possible. So something that I believe people should just take away from that. It's actually very easy to get caught up in, will I say, self-righteousness. And just think that, just thank God I'm not like this person, or I never struggle with this. Just realize that, see, all of us, we're in one category, we're all rebelling against
Exactly. Everybody. I don't care what you were doing. I don't care how light your sin was.
Exactly.
We're all rebellious.
Yes. Everybody was going to hell, but Jesus said no. Yes, he did what he did amazingly, and it just really got us there. So we don't ever your story is somebody's healing process. So that's just one thing. And for me, answering that same question, it's kind of similar to what you said. Me being purpose conscious, I term it something called my awakening. I call it my awakening. I would have said in the past that, I regret not knowing, like if I had known now what I know, if I known then what I know now.
If you know now what you know.
If I know
what you know now, you knew then.
I would have been somewhere farther than this. I just started to say exactly what you said. It's probably someone that's out there needs to hear my story, just get encouraged and realize that there's grace for every season. That that you feel doesn't mean that you're disqualified. You can always get back up, but the grace of God is there to lead you. You have the Holy Spirit inside of you to get what you need done. And but what I would say is my biggest fear. I was reflecting on this the other day. It's not loving someone the way Christ called us to. Because there's someone I lost recently, and I remember before he died, I was thinking, actually, I believe the Holy Spirit convicted me. Just love this person with all your heart. Look past his flaws. And I was like, no, I was magnifying the flaws, and I allowed it to cloud my perception, God's perception of that person that I'm supposed to ascribe to. I did that, and I regretted it so badly. Like, it really, really haunted me so badly. I just used to stay up at night crying and just really wishing that I could turn back the hands of time and go back and embrace this person, really love them, see past their flaws, see past the things that used to irritate me, and just love you, because I can't undo what I did. So it now makes me realize that to everybody, it's really a lot. It's not easy to love difficult people that get on your nerves, and people that piss you off. You have every reason to go back, but if you remember what Christ did for you, you'd be able to say, this was demonstrated to me. This is the mercy that I received. I've received grace freely, so freely I should give that grace and mercy as well. And also, it's what we're called to do. We're not supposed to be like everyone else. As God's children, you're not everyone else. You are called out. You are called out to be separate and sanctified. That's the wow factor that most people do not have. Ordinarily in that context, people are supposed to distance themselves with people that are difficult to love and difficult to get on with. It's just not possible to peacefully coexist. But that's what Christ calls us to do. Just do it. Ask for grace. It's not easy, but it's possible. So if God can redeem us to himself, then that's replicable in our real life situations and relationships that are difficult.
And I think that's like so opposite to the, should I say doctrine, because everything is a doctrine, the doctrine that is preached to our generation, in that we have changed the definition, or we have thwarted the definition of self-love, right? And we have turned it to more so a selfish thing, that if anyone is disturbing my peace of mind, I'm going to, right? And of course, there is a place for distancing, all right? But, you know, it has been taken to such an extreme that we have forgotten why we have been called to love. And, you know, one profound thing that you mentioned was, you know, anytime you find yourself in that situation, like just try and reminisce on what Christ did for you. And I see that throughout scripture, especially throughout the epistles, Paul's writing to the church in Ephesus. And I think for like the first 2 or 3 chapters, before Paul starts to tell them how they should act in Christ, he told them who they are in Christ, right? Yeah. Because it's who you are that would now, you know, influence how you act.
Yes.
So if we always understand, or we always remember that, okay, like Christ died for me, he died, you know, like what I did to Christ was way worse than what this person is doing to me,
yes.
right? So it's common sense to just reciprocate that to the next person. And like you said, you know, there's always grace and mercy, and we can always access that, right? But of our own ability is extremely difficult to love, because our nature is opposite to that, or at least the nature of man, you know, is opposite to loving, you know, people.
Next question: any role models? Anybody, particular person you look up to?
I think the last time we had this conversation, I don't think I gave you an answer, or at least, you know, I didn't like have anyone per se. But right now it's Apostle Emmanuel Aaron. Yeah, that's who I look up to. Like, he just looks like the definition of what God has called me to do. So yeah, for role model, he's the one that I look up to. He's the way he teaches, what he teaches, and the fact that he's a teacher, right? Of course, we know that, you know, not everyone is called into the teaching ministry as an office, right? Some have been apostles. Of course, all of them are meant to teach, but then there is a teacher role, and he just does that. Like, he teaches on the faith, like everything basically, the theology about the faith, everything basically that has to do with, you know, the faith of the believer, to the end that they go from here to like hell. And I just, you know, he's just someone that I really look up to. And plus, he dresses really nice.
Yes, always on point. Sharp. You can never catch him off guard.
No,
like,
never ever. Even his haircut.
Yes.
How much you cut? Like, you're always cutting his hair.
Always.
It's so nice. Yeah.
Actually, what will you say are his top 3 like qualities that you look up to?
The fact that he teaches, right? His fashion sense, and then his all-roundedness, such that he's not a church person. When I mean not a church person, meaning that he does not just preach the Bible, right? Every other thing, that's like, I mean literally every other thing, whether it's fashion, whether it's exercise, right? He talks about that, of course, still on the template and foundation of scripture. But he's so all-round that, you know, if you look at his YouTube channel, for example, he does some fitness stuff there, right? He does some productivity. I remember he was doing a productivity series at some point in time. He talks about marriage. Like, there's just such an all-roundedness, right? And, you know, it's just that, like, that's one of the major things I you know, admire, right? Because I know I'm not someone that's only called to preach in church, right? There's also finances for me, personal development, productivity. And at some point I was so, you know, confused, like, okay, like, how does this fit into my purpose? Like, and I was not asking God, like, I was just confused in general. And I really did not like the idea of people calling me a content creator. I don't know why. Okay, I know why. It's because of the image that, you know, people my age have, like the content creation space in for people my age, right? They're always like, hey guys, welcome back to my channel. No shade, genuinely no shade, right? But I just can't find myself doing that kind of thing. So I want to know, how can what I know now, how can what God has led me to know, you know, still fit into that purpose? And, you know, he just does that so well. There's almost nothing he does not talk about.
It's really amazing. One thing that really stands out to me about him is the intentionality he puts in to being there for his children, because being who he is, he doesn't just go out anyhow and all of that. But in spite of that, I think he mentioned once in one of his messages that he still goes to pick his children, I think on some certain days by himself.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that he makes out time. And he said, I think he said something about how his life is basically scheduled. There's time for everything. But even in that, he didn't say, I'm too busy for my children.
Yeah.
He knows obviously the implications of being absent.
Yeah.
And, you know, it never ends well.
Yeah.
So he was just very intentional about that. And I just saw that, see, in this thing, if you're starting a family, you don't have any excuse. If you made that choice to bring children to this world, you have the responsibility to be there for them, to be present, and to do your best by the grace of God to make sure that they're molded to be who they're supposed to be, who God has called them to be, to do your own part. So he didn't say, I'm too busy, or I have this meeting, I have to be here at this particular time. He didn't give himself excuses. He just went ahead. And I believe that their result is going to reap the fruit. So it's just really admirable. So don't ever think that you're too busy for your children or for your family. It's so important. So important to make out time for your family and really grow and be present. It's really amazing.
Yeah, before you go on to your role models, I think still on this point, it's extremely easy for people to look at preachers and give excuses for them. Like, you can't be there for your kids because obviously you're doing the work of ministry, which is a whole lot. But even Paul is against that. He was writing to Timothy in 1 Timothy, I think 2 or 3. And he said that when giving like the roles of a bishop, right, he said that you have to take care of your home, because if you can't do that, you can't take care of the church, right? So your home is actually your first priority before the church, right? So it's not one or the other. I found out that in the Christian faith, we always like to go to one extreme, right? So you find out there's a group of people that like the fruits of the spirit, that don't like the gifts, and other people like the gifts but don't really fancy the fruit, right? Like, there's a balance to everything in the Christian faith, and the balance to what you just said is being there for your kids and being there for your ministry without neglecting, one or the other.
And he just what's the word? Just depicts how possible that is.
Yes.
So if anyone just thinks about that life being in ministry, they just discard the thought of even starting a family because they're too busy. But if people like this exist, you don't have any excuse.
You don't have any excuse. And he loves his wife. My Jesus Christ.
I think his wife when he was recently. When he posted something, I was like, oh.
Yeah, that is so nice.
Yes. Okay, my role models. I think I don't have one particular person.
Okay.
There's some qualities that I admire in different people that I look up to. So I think for spirituality and like faith, I think I'll give Elijah Lamb that he's an American preacher. He's like our age. I think he's 20. And if you listen to his sermons,
it's like remind me afterwards.
Just check Elijah Lamb sermons on YouTube. There's so much.
He's 20.
He's 20, like he has grown. Like he started preaching at 16. Hardcore theology. I'm telling you, it was when I saw this guy, I was like, ha. I was like, ha. He's just amazing.
That is insane.
He started with, I think, TikTok or something, but that was when I was on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok anymore, please. But when I was on TikTok and I saw him, I was like, how old is this guy? I just went to his profile. I was like, and you know this much. He has separate accounts, like personal account, like personal life and some other things. But there's another one where he teaches doctrine, and this was when he was like 17. I was like, ha. Oh, you have work to do.
that is
That's amazing.
Yeah, that is very admirable.
And it's when I came to school, I saw young people going after God. I was just like, wow, this is possible. It just gingered me up the more.
I think being in a community is extremely important.
It's indispensable in the life of any believer.
Like, it's extremely indispensable.
My eyes saw. And I thank God my eyes saw.
Me too.
Academics, do I have anybody? Honestly, no. Finance. So I have a friend. Yes, he's amazing. He's focused, and he's this kind of person that he embraces the learning process of everything. He's focused on trying to be financially independent. Getting there as early as possible. And just embracing the processes that bring that reality to manifestation. So I see the way he everything, he's so careful, very careful about the kinds of people he interacts with, people he gives his time to, the kinds of content he consumes, how he spends his time. It's just a lot. It's also beyond finances, but just the way he carries himself. That was he was even the reason why I began to take finances seriously, like how much I know about money and things like that, and how I see money and getting into that aspect of my life. He was the one that really kickstarted that, and it's amazing. Then what other aspects is there?
I don't know. Like personal development?
Personal
Do you have?
development. I think it's that same person.
Okay.
It means like I have a role model.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was actually a friend in school. And
Okay.
it's just amazing. All right, the last question, unless you have more questions. So, what's one book that you read that changed your life forever?
So it's Sell Like Crazy by Sabri Subi. I think I mentioned this in my like 2 videos ago. But it changed my whole concept of finances, right? I have a tutorial company, I think you know this, and
Yeah.
I had launched before, but I had not made any sales, and I spent a lot of money on advertisement, right? But after reading the book, it just gave me a very different and more detailed direction to marketing, and how to systemize everything, right? To the end that you take a person that does not know anything about your product or your company to someone that is ready to spend a lot of money, that kind of thing, right? So that book changed my life, at least in the business way, in seeing how to actually run a company and not just a side hustle. So yeah, that was that. How about you?
No, but is there any book that really shed light on the importance or the significance of living life like productively?
Purpose driven life.
That's good.
Purpose driven life, yeah. But Atomic Habits was extremely good as well. Extremely good talking. Even though it's extremely difficult for me to follow the principles, because it's the ideas that you do very small things every single day till they become habit. But I want to do big things now and continue with that, and that's not sustainable at all.
Okay.
Right? So that book did change my life. But purpose driven life, it gave me a very proper understanding of what purpose actually is. I used to think that purpose was always rooted in your talents, right? And anytime someone asks me what talents do you have, I genuinely can't think of anything. I can't think of.
You can teach now. It's talent.
That's the thing. I never knew that.
Okay, at that point.
Yeah, I never knew that was a talent. I would always think of singing, dancing,
Yes,
drawing, like things like that,
yeah.
right? Like more direct things. So I always think that your purpose has to be rooted in all of that, and I was always confused, like, what is my purpose? What am I put on earth for? And everything. And he first defined purpose to be the general thing, like we are meant to give glory to God, right? And once you are in that, the specific thing starts to come, because now you are living your life just wanting to give glory to God, just wanting to please Him. That's the primary, basis of purpose, and it's only in that you find your specific purpose. You can never find it outside of that, because your specific would do the same thing, only in a more specific way. It would still bring glory to God's name. So that book really, gave me more insight into the definition and term for purpose.
Are there any things that still ring at the back of your mind till today from that book?
It's just that basis. Like every time that I feel distracted, right? If I can just make my basis, Lord, I want to please you, right? I just want to please you. If doing this will not please you, I don't want it. If getting the best things in life would not please you, I don't want it, right? Like that still rings in my head, right? I do need to read the book again, because it's that good of a book. But yeah, that rings in my head, like just doing like that. And it's not the bare minimum, it's actually the maximum. You just want to please God, right? So that is how you live a purpose-driven life.
It's really wonderful. Okay, me right, yes. A book that I read that changed my life is Battlefield of the Mind, Jeremiah.
You have mentioned this one. I know I said I would have a read.
Yes, I know. I thought about it. People that knew that, I thought about that for a long time, because she described the mind as a stronghold. And I remember, okay, I'll just tell this quick story. Like, these two people, they were playing this game, and I think it had to do with the first person to reach it. It was like an office. So the first person who arrives and gets to a particular room wins. So there was this day that this one of them, okay, let's call them George and Smith. I don't know, okay, so George arrived before Smith, and I think he was doing some things before he was able to actually get there to that particular room in the office. And then Smith was just coming, and he peeped from the window and he saw that, oh, you're around. So he just got to the door, and then he said, I'm locking you, and I'm going to spend the rest of the day in this room. And then the guy just kept banging the door, let me out. And he was like, no. He was like laughing, and he went about his business. And then he had actually gone about his business, and he forgot him there until he started like hearing some movements like in the ceiling. That was when he was like, "What is that?" And then he just fell down from the like he broke the ceiling, came down, and he was just like jaw dropped. I didn't lock this door.
Yeah.
And it just boggles my mind how you didn't try once to open the door.
Yeah.
And then I just used that to really, she didn't mention this in her book, but it just really made sense when I put those two things together, because she was just talking about how the mind is a stronghold. So that was kind of like a stronghold.
Yeah.
So if you believe that, if you believe a certain thing and you never challenge that thought, it's going to dictate your life.
Yeah.
It's so profound how your thoughts, these thoughts that exist in your mind here and there, it actually projects what your life do. It just projects onto your life, and it determines where you're going for a very large degree.
Yeah,
Some people will say your village people are doing you, but to a very, very, very large degree, emphasis on very, it comes from what happens in your thought life. So it now began to dawn on me, like, what exactly has been going on in my mind. You know, I had a gap year after my secondary school, and before I become purpose conscious, or I had gotten to my awakening, like I termed it, I didn't know that anything was wrong with wasting time. My life was just based on self-entertainment. Is it TikTok? Who is it I don't know? Is it YouTube? Who is it I don't know? I was just on Netflix, just wasting time. And I didn't know that there was anything that needed to be urgently attended to personally. So I just lived life, just floating. I thought that was, life, until I just really began to think about it, that, is this normal? Why is this comfort normal to me? Why am I okay with this? I began to meet people, and I just really went back to the book and was like, a lot of things that are in your life are resulting from what happens in your mind. So I just began to challenge everything. She said something in her book: think about what you're thinking about. That is, inspect your thoughts, your very thoughts. Challenge it. Is it from you? Is it from the devil? Is it from God? Things like that. So it's when you pay attention to your thought life and you begin to act on changes, you begin to act on those observations in a positive light. That's when you begin to see changes. And it's just so amazing how I just have a different life now because I paid attention to my thoughts. So that's one thing I really, really took away from that book. It's so powerful. Your mind is the most powerful thing, in my opinion, that you can leverage your mind. It even stretches beyond like how you perceive yourself. It goes to the point where you think about challenges and like things or mountains that you can surmount. Like, can I do this? Is this impossible? Is this not possible? Things like that. So if you believe that you can't, you won't. That's the reality. There's no two way about it. So if you go to all the lengths that your power can afford to go to, and you actually do all your best, a lot of times you see that you can do. Colonel Sanders, he's the founder of KFC, and he struggled for about 4 decades of his life. And I believe it's because, I don't really know the full biography, but the fact that he was able to establish KFC at the age of 60, just really told me something, that this guy was persistent. He kept telling himself, I can do it. It's only when you tell yourself, and don't quit, I can do it, I can do that, you actually get there. So after 4 decades of suffering and going ups and downs and everything, was finally able to make something of himself. And look at where it is today, global. So it's because he went to all the lengths, he didn't give up. Probably he gave up and he went back, but the fact that he kept going, it's just a result of persistence and believing. It all starts in the mind, and that's something I really admire. Persistence, resilience, it's amazing. So
I think that's good, because it's one of the reasons why knowledge acquisition is extremely important, because it expands your mind. And it's not just in the secular space, it's also a Christian doctrine, such that the things that you don't know, you actually can't do, right? So Paul would explain to, I really like quoting Paul, but Paul would explain to the church in Corinth that, after, they've been doing a lot of bad things, immoral activities, then he said, know ye not that your body is temple of the Holy Spirit, right? So he was more saying that the reason you are doing these things is because you don't know that your body is a temple. If you actually know, you wouldn't be doing, these things. The reason why, a lot of believers can't lay hands and they recover is because they feel that the gifts of the spirit are individualistic, such that I don't have the gift of healing, so I can't heal, right? And unfortunately you will never be able to do it unless you know that you can, right? So expanding your mind on it's, you can only do as much as your mind can carry, like you mentioned. It's always baffling when I see a believer that is living a life contrary to the life of a believer, and they say things like, "Oh, it's not about the things that I do. You don't know what's in my heart." But I do know what's in your heart. What's in your heart is what you're doing. Like, you can only do the things that are in your head, in your heart. Like, what everything that we do is from exactly, like an extension of what happens, inside. So, just expanding your mind is such a beautiful thing in as many things as possible. And again, that's where purpose, comes from. Now you're focused on what you want to extend. Like, there are things that I just will not do, right? I can't spend so much time learning how to code, for example, because, and this is like practicality, like this is what I'm trying to do. I'm learning to code. That's only because I'm studying computer science. Other than that, I would not be doing it. But I can't spend so much time, or at least as much time as some of my friends are, because that is not in line with my purpose. Exactly. That's not what I'm meant to be focusing on right now. But I just want to I just want to graduate well.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that is necessary.
That notes on knowing things, I believe it doesn't stop there. Because how many people, I'm sure that there are millions of people out there that in sermons and they're like, I agree to this, they just keep nodding their head, and that's where it stops. It now comes down to self-talk. I say, am I actually going to take action on this knowledge I have acquired?
I think that's very good.
That is the difference between me and whoever is in this, like hearing this conversation and then just nodding their head. It's the action. It's the action. If you tell yourself, I'm going to do this, even if you fall on, you keep going back to that goal you set for yourself. Keep going back. That is where the difference stands out. So before I was that kind of person, I was like, what you're saying makes sense, but once I close the chapter, I turned off the phone. That's the end of the story. I don't do anything about it. But you have to actually tell yourself, I'm going to do something, and be very practical about that. Even if it means writing down your daily goals, that's something that's really helped me. Writing down my daily goals. The fact that you have your New Year resolution doesn't always mean that you're going to achieve those goals. Because if you're not meticulous in your planning, you're not detailed, you don't pay attention to how you plan things and actually how you execute things, it will just remain a goal. Nothing's going to happen to it. So one thing that really helped me get more productive is writing down daily goals for my day. Even if I don't do some certain tasks at certain times, I have direction. This is what I'm going to do. And consistently doing that, I'll get to those goals. It's action. Action is key.
Action is extremely key. I made a video on mental masturbation, and it basically talks about acquiring so much knowledge and not putting it into action. And it was one of my problems when it came to reading books and even studying the Bible, right? It was only till like I can't study the Bible, I can't read a book if I'm not writing. Like I just can't, especially the reading books thing, because there's like a level of pride that comes when you've read like 10 books, 15 books and things like that, right? But it's like, is it showing you like no, that kind of thing, right? And it's why like at the point I read the purpose driven life, I was not writing. It was the period where I was just reading books and things like that. But when I started writing, I then recollect more, I then remember more, and then I can say, okay, these are the action steps. Like I don't think in a 200-page book you're going to take action from every chapter. Like that's not happening. But at least there should be like a central truth that you want to actually take away if there are things that but so I think action is extremely important. Something that I've had to learn and I am still learning. Like I watched like a lot of videos on finance. It was only when I started like, let me start the business for all of those things started working. So I think that's important. Action is
That's all the questions I have. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Do you have any more questions?
I don't think so. Except the only thing that we could. This is going to happen again, either here or when we get back to school. But at some point in time, maybe something themed like Christian, that's on the Christian faith.
No problem.
And all of that. But I think that's all for today.
Thank you so much for having me.
It was my pleasure.
Alright, so guys, this is where call it a day. I hand it over to the owner of the channel.
All right. Thank you guys so much for sticking. Like, if you stay till the end, please drop like a carrot emoji, right? Because it would mean a lot. This video is long, so if you did stay, this long, then it means you're a real G, or you enjoyed the video, got something, and all of that. Type what you learned in the comments. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.
Bye.